We watched a video about a kid named Noah Wall. Okay? Destiny, disagreements? Yeah, in a second. Hold on. I want to get this out here because this triggered the out of me. And you know what? I was right to be triggered. Okay. Noah Wall was born with a condition called spina bifida. Spina bifida is a neural tube defect which prevents the closing of the spinal cord. All right. I think he had the most severe version of spina bifida, which is called myelomeningocele. Hold on. Say this for me.
Medicine published the results of the management of myelomeningocele study.
Myelomeningocele.
Mine is myelomeningocele. That's
Oh, really? Myelo.
And then finally,
Say it.
the myelomeningocele is
Myelomeningocele. Okay. This is not necessarily a developmental disorder in the brain. This has to do with the spinal cord not closing appropriately, and as a result, it leads to an inability to reabsorb cerebral spinal fluid, and then the spinal fluid will grow to occupy more and more space in your skull, and as a result of that, your brain, okay, will get hardcore compressed or pushed outward towards the inner wall of your skull. Okay?
He's astounded.
This here, this is not 2% of your brain. This is all your brain sponged up against the side of your wall. Okay? This kid's brain never grew from 2% to 80%. This never happened. All right? Now, if your brain is this compressed for a long period of time, then sure, it can atrophy, or you could just die, or it could lead to other issues or whatever, 100%. But this right here, okay, this issue, this spina bifida thing, is not a failure of parts of your brain to develop. Okay? Okay. Now, there are other things. Okay. The kid with the fucked head that we saw had, say this for me.
Turned 1. Jackson has microhydraneucephaly.
Microhydraneucephaly, okay? Now, I think microcephaly, I read these last time. I'm going to reread these over and over again, okay? So, in microcephaly, your brain, I believe, there are parts of your brain. Wait, let me go through both of these. Never mind. Nope. For microcephaly, I think this might just be a skull deformity that makes your skull smaller. Let me just check real quick. Which can hurt the development of your brain. Because it doesn't have enough space to grow. Hydranencephaly. Hydranencephaly? Hold on.
And the eldest person to live with hydranencephaly.
Hydranencephaly. Okay. Now, this is part of a group of conditions called, it's a type of cephalac disorder. But what this means here, okay, is that parts of your brain are completely and totally absent. There is nothing that grew there. Nothing will grow there. It's a developmental disorder, a neurodevelopmental disorder where it's just, it's not there. You have nothing. It's not there, okay? Now, it's annoying because this hydranencephaly sounds similar to this hydrocephalus, and I believe that hydrocephalus is just a description of the condition of the buildup of cerebral spinal fluid. And so hydrocephalus is a condition that results from like spina bifida, but these two things are very, very, very different, okay? This is just you got a lot of cerebral spinal fluid. You could drain it with a shunt, and potentially your kid could be okay. In fact, I think that's generally the ordinary treatment, and generally they're okay. But in this baby has no brain. There's no brain, okay? It's just, it didn't even develop. So there happens to be fluid or whatever, I think that ends up filling the skull, but there's no brain here. Okay. Okay. The reason why, okay, so I'm just getting through all these because I was looking up some of these cases, and now I don't want to just assume that I can tell because I'm like backwards rationalizing it. Oh, I feel like I can. If you look at babies are very responsive to things, assuming they don't have like terminal autism or something, okay? Like if you look at a baby in an elevator on a plane, you like open your eyes, the babies will like look at you, they'll smile, they'll laugh, right? So they said over and over in this stupid fucking video, this baby has 2% of a brain, this baby's 2% of a brain. But when you look at this baby...
Boy, which is your left hand? Yes, sir. Good boy.
Like, the guy, this is clearly, there's an awareness, there's something happening in this kid's head, right? You just see right there, literally responding to the mom, okay? Now, I actually don't take the position for that Jackson kid that he was suffering. I actually think it's a really sad case for the parents. I don't even think this child could suffer. This kid, I watched this 21-minute thing where they watched about the miracle of their kid. This person is something. I know this sounds deranged, and I have to find a way to package this up more neatly for a debate. But this thing is less than human. I'm sorry, but there is no upper cognitive functions. The parts of the brain just don't exist. And I believe that you can tell immediately just by watching it interact. And it's very sad, but like...
...of Jackson before Brandon comes, and to continue advocating for the belief that every life has purpose and value. Now, let's watch a short clip of Jackson before Brandon comes to the stage.
What do you think, bud? What do you think? Oh, is that fun? Yeah.
You playing? Press
Get
the
the
button.
piano. You gotta get the key, buddy.
Get it, buddy. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Good job. Good job, bud.
Good job, buddy.
Good
Wow,
job, Jackson.
Jackson. Good job, buddy.
Where are you going?
You really got into that note.
Yeah.
That was good.
So like the limbs are moving, but there is no response to anything happening. Everything here is incidental. The child has, I think, seizures fairly commonly, but there is absolutely no acknowledgement or awareness of anything going on. I wanted to watch this. I was curious if they would show more videos of him, but they actually bring him in at the end. I feel so bad for the parents. Like I said, I don't even think the child is suffering. There is nothing is happening inside this, whatever this, the body's, nothing is happening here.
I'll make it quick, I promise. I have the easy job of speaking in front of a crowd, especially when you compare it to the strength that the two of these guys show every single day. Just as my wife and my son have encouraged and inspired me, I want to challenge everyone out there to do the same. Inspire and encourage one another. And love and serve others still today. Love and serve others, even when you have to love your opposition, even when that opposition certainly does not return that love. When your opposition stands against you, when they hate you, when they despise you, when they mock you, when they persecute you, love them in return. I don't care how much society changes, how much it already has changed. I don't care that the same old biblical truths and Christian and conservative and pro-life stances that we have.
Part of the brain is maybe missing. I believe he's missing almost everything past the brainstem, I think. I believe.
As individuals and as organizations, they're no longer considered cool or popular.
Because the condition the baby had was microhydranencephaly. So not only was the skull small as well, but the cerebral hemispheres and the cerebellum are completely absent, and there's just water. It's just CSF, cerebral spinal fluid. There's nothing developed there, and nothing can or will develop. There's nothing.
And we're certainly not considered to be politically correct. I don't care. Though society has...
So he's not doing any movements on purpose. They're just happening. Correct. It's just moving. Like that, like your brainstem will do some things autonomously, I don't know, something like that.
Changed and will continue to change. Not one page of the Bible and not one word spoken and written by Jesus Christ himself has ever changed. On the front page of jacksonstrong.com website.
What about his breathing? Shouldn't that be messed up as well? No, you can breathe as well too. I believe that your brainstem, the brainstem will take care of most autonomous functions for you, and even some basic movements. That's why you see people when they get like a head injury, their bodies can assume basic like fencing postures or whatever. Could it be basic response to stimulus without consciousness is what you're saying? But it's not like a thoughtful response. It'll just be like if the lights are really bright, I think the pupils might dilate or whatever, and then the limbs will just kind of move around. But
dedicated to our little guy here and to the Jackson Strong Foundation, there are 2 verses.
Like I don't even think the baby can swallow. I think it's fed through a feeding tube.
The first is Jeremiah 1:5, and it states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Just from that verse alone, I know that I stand on the right side of this fight, of this issue, because God has formed every single one of us in the womb by his design, just like with Jackson. So I'm sure, bless you.
It's so hearing the room like do that, like it's a fucking science experiment, was so crazy. Ooh, like
design, just like with Jackson. So I'm sure, bless you. So I know, cute baby sneezes. So I know how God feels about abortion from that one verse. And the other verse is Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in a future." That future for Jackson is uncertain. He has his challenges. But that future for all of us is uncertain. So how will we spend the time that we are given? For me, I will gladly continue to stand and fight for the beliefs that I have. I will fight for
Do you think this thing has any conscious experience at all? No.
him. I will fight for her. I will fight for us. And I will fight within a pro-life movement and community as a Christian, as a husband, and as a father. So for Brittany and for Jackson, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to share his very strong, credible story, and God bless.
There's another video. I don't think I saved this, but there's like a video of him. It's just like so delusional. And before I find like the one where
You want to say hi to anybody in particular? Okay. Yes.
Say hi.
Yeah. Hi, world. Yeah. My name's.
like they think it's responding, but it's not. But if you just leave the camera on, it just makes a bunch of random noises and then just has seizures. It's like watching somebody with a pet snake thinking that the snake is like responding to them.
Jackson. Yeah.
Say bye-bye, Dada.
Like this,
Hi,
like
buddy.
he's
You
walking,
into your room?
but he just his limbs just like move.
Yeah. You walking into your room?
There you go.
Yeah. Good job.
Good job, bud.
Go into your room. You're going.
I think apparently this guy lived till he was 5, and then he died. But I think it's a fascinating research subject to see what the brainstem can do. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It reinforced my irritation yesterday with people saying that one baby had like 2% of its brain, and this baby, you know, had technically a higher percent. But it's like, but not really. The fluid displacing the brain is a lot different than like the brain just not developing. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was a crazy. That whole kid's thing story is just like, yeah, Jesus. Not good. Should I feel bad for laughing at this? I feel conflicted. Oh, Jesus. I retweeted that last night. What is the goal of digging in on these developmental issues to the overall abortion debate? Well, because these are cases that are always like, these are cases that always end up getting brought up. And it's good to know 100% what's going on at Destiny. Okay, listen, there's, your brain has like structures to it that do like different things. Okay, so it's very annoying when I see, like, and I don't know, this is science scholar, who knows, maybe I'm about to be wrong about everything. Okay, but like when something says, meet the man who lives normally with damage to 90% of his brain, like that could mean a lot of different things. Okay, I'm sure there are parts of your brain where if you're missing 1% of it, you will die. And when it says 90%, I don't know if this means like 90% was scooped out, but maybe they'll say, okay, a Frenchman who lives a relatively normal, healthy life, despite damaging 90% of his brain, is causing scientists to rethink what it is from a biological perspective that makes us conscious. Despite decades of research, our understanding of consciousness, being aware of one's existence, is still pretty thin. Many scientists think that the physical source of consciousness is based on the brain, but then how can someone lose the majority of their neurons and still be aware of themselves and their surroundings? First described in the Lancet 2007, the case of a man who appears to have been missing most of his brain, and puzzling scientists for almost 10 years. The Frenchman was 44 years at the time the journal came out. Research explained how most of the relative. He only. This better not be a hydrocephalus. Is that what it is? Or is it I don't want to fuck this. Is it going to be another one of these? Because it looks like another buildup of fluid and there's brain pressed against here. He only went to the doctor complaining of mild weakness in his left leg when brain scans revealed that his skull was mostly filled with fluid, just leaving a thin outer layer of actual brain tissue, with the internal part of his brain almost totally eroded away. You can see his scans below. Doctors think the majority of the man's brain was slowly destroyed over the course of 30 years by the buildup of fluid in the brain. A condition is hydrocephalus. Okay, so it's a similar thing. Now, like, I'm sure this will have negative impacts on you, and I'm sure he did have negative impacts in his life, but it's not the same as saying your brain is literally, like, removed, like they scooped out half of it. Like, so he also had they say a stent. I don't know the difference between a stent and a shunt. Despite his minimal remaining brain tissue, the man wasn't mentally disabled. He had a low IQ of 75, but he was working as a civil servant. Oh, God. Isn't 75, doesn't that count as mental disability? Not only did this case study cause scientists to question what it takes to survive, it also challenged our understanding of consciousness. Does it, though? Did they say that? Or is it just like an interesting... Do I want to read the full text of this? His neurological development and medical history were otherwise normal. He proved to have an intelligence quotient of 75. What counts as disabled? What IQ counts as mental disability? Oh, it's 70 or below. Okay. Jesus. I used to work in a lab for neurodegenerative disorders. We saw people regularly with massive amounts of missing gray matter, but they seemed perfectly fine until you tested them on very specific tasks. MoCA, for example, MoCA. The brain is very flexible and can compensate for many tasks, but the issues will arrive relative to task type / complexity. Sure. One standard deviation is 15. I thought standard deviation was 10. What is this? Oh, it's 15? Okay.
Smile.
Your smile makes you look wild and innocent at the same time.
How do you like the city?
I bet you're breaking a lot of hearts in the city nowadays.
English is not my first language.
You'll get to hear my sexy accent over drinks when we meet.
Why do you only send me one-word replies?
I feel a lack of enthusiasm. I think you can do a lot better than this.
How are you so good at texting?
I follow @CoachWestOfficial.
I like your smile.
Your smile makes you look wild.
Okay. Do you think this clip was edited deceptively? BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News Deborah Turnus have resigned over the doctoring of this clip in a BBC documentary.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and...
Man, this is actually a tough one. I actually don't know when it comes to editing or whatever. The right one is more like verbal accurate, but in a vacuum, it sounds like he's just talking about we're going to go and cheer them on. But in the whole speech, what he's talking about is cheering them on to overturn the election results. That's what he wants them to do. He talks about weak senators, weak congressmen, and we need to give them the courage to do the right thing, which is overturning the election results. When I say it's a deceptive edit, I mean, this is part of like a whole documentary. I mean, I don't know. It is still misleading, though, because of the chopping. Well, that's what is interesting. The left clip is less misleading than the right clip. Just cutting this, you could argue it's just a bad cut. The left clip is a more honest characterization of what he was saying. The right clip is I would argue, completely dishonest. If you're seeing it in a vacuum, it just depends. But the problem is the whole speech is like an hour long. So they should have just added pauses between the sentences and made it clear they were from different parts of the speech. Yeah, maybe that would have been a better thing to do. I would have to see the full I would have to see the full documentary to know how I feel about it, I guess. I don't know. Here's the whole BBC Story 6-minute video. Oh.
The BBC.
Is it the documentary is 6 minutes? Oh, this video is just 6 minutes.
Claims to be the pinnacle of impartial reporting. But what if there was an internal dossier that revealed that wasn't the case? The Telegraph has seen a letter that reveals one of the BBC's own independent advisors repeatedly warned that the broadcaster had serious and systemic problems. A week before the US election, BBC Panorama released a documentary called Trump: A Second Chance, and in it, they played the following clip.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell.
But Trump didn't, in fact, say this at all. The BBC spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
So, like, I would argue, unless maybe he'll clarify here, what he just said actually sounded misleading. Because I think that an ordinary person, most people think this speech was like 1 minute. Most people are fucking retarded. I think that he just said like, oh, we're going to walk down peacefully. Whatever. When he says splice together two clips that are 54 minutes apart, that makes it sound like it wasn't the same speech even. But it was. This was all. He said a lot of crazy shit in this hour-long speech, but whatever.
Didn't, in fact, say this at all.
And to say he didn't say it at all, well, he did, but it was cut from, like when he says it sounds like Trump didn't say this at all, it sounds like it came from two separate speeches. He did say these things. It's just there's a cut here that you could argue, like the sentence didn't happen, as he said, but.
Spliced together two clips that took place 54 minutes apart. So let's go through it again.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you.
Now, see there, between Capitol and, that's a cut. Here's what Trump actually said.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
It's different. It wasn't until nearly an hour later that he then said the second part of the BBC's version.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Oh, this at least makes it clear it's the same speech, I guess. That's good.
And we fight. We fight like hell.
Now, it's true that a lot of people will still feel Trump's claims that in 2021 the election was stolen were...
Wait, why didn't they play any more of that clip?
entirely inappropriate and unbecoming of a figure in politics. But irrespective of your personal views on Trump, the question remains, how is a national broadcaster funded by taxpayers on the premise that it will provide impartial reporting allowed to splice together content in a way that one of its own advisors said
One week before polling day, the BBC aired an hour-long panorama special called Trump Second Chance. I watched the program and found it to be neither balanced nor impartial. It seemed to be taking a distinctly anti-Trump stance. Critics of the Republican presidential candidate vastly outnumbered those who argued for him. What examination there was of reasons for Trump's popularity seemed to me insufficient given the overall balance of the program. Given what I took to be the anti-Trump nature of the program, I, of course, assumed there would be a similar balancing panorama program about Democrat presidential candidate Kamala Harris the following week. I remain shocked that there was not. I raised my concerns at the EGSC, and David Grossman was asked to review the program. He concluded the main contributors to the documentary were heavily weighted against Trump, with just one supporter against 10 who questioned his fitness for office. Worse still, David highlighted alarming concerns about how Panorama had edited Trump's speech to his supporters on January 6, 2021, the day of the Capitol Hill riot. Examining the charge that Trump had incited protesters from Capitol Hill, it turned out the Panorama had spliced together two clips from separate parts of his speech. This created the impression that Trump said something he did not, and in doing so, materially misled viewers. The spliced together version of Trump's commentary aired by Panorama made it seem like he said, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be with you, and we fight like hell. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore." In reality, the first part of Trump's speech, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be with you," came 15 minutes into the speech. The second half of the sentence that was aired by Panorama, "and we fight like hell," came 54 minutes later. 15 minutes into the speech, what Trump actually said was, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be with you. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voice heard." It was completely misleading to edit to the clip in the way the Panorama aired it. The fact that he did not explicitly exhort supporters to go down and fight at Capitol Hill was one of the reasons there were no federal charges for incitement to riot. That's absolutely not true. That's absolutely fucking bullshit. There was no... Also, why don't they ever say what the rest of the... What like quote around the fight thing, right? I think one of our great, this is the fight like hell context, a couple sentences before and a couple sentences after. I think one of our great achievements will be election security, because nobody until I came along had any idea how corrupt our elections were. And again, most people would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, "I want to thank you very much," and they go off to some other life. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Something really wrong can have happened, and we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have our country. You're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country.
advisors said materially misled viewers. And we're not even done.
It's so crazy. I think every conservative I've asked has just bit the bullet on this, because I always ask them, I was like, well, hold on. So after Trump gave this speech to tell them to go march peacefully, all of them went down and then there was a riot. Do you think they just misunderstood him? Like, did nobody know what he actually meant? Like, what happened there?
Yet. The footage Panorama showed of the Proud Boys marching towards the Capitol building, seemingly spurred on by Trump's rousing speech, well, that was actually taken before he'd even addressed the crowd. In fact, the BBC themselves later published a report at odds with Panorama's own timeline.
These are the Proud Boys, another right-wing militia, seen a little earlier that morning.
Out of your boy!
Donald Trump will not appear for another hour or so, but they're already heading towards the Capitol.
They even time-stamped the footage.
Well, wait, it sounds like in the documentary, it sounds like they said that these guys did go before the speech. Am I misunderstanding?
To show that the march began at 10:58 a.m., well before Trump's midday speech. The true chronology raises...
But that's what they said, no? Wait, am I crazy?
Serious questions about the way in which the BBC decided to portray the events of January the 6th. In fact, the memo highlights that shortly after the first extract of Trump's speech, the now president actually said,
"I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building, to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
The BBC advisor who wrote this report claimed Panorama's editing was
He says that, but right before that, he tells his audience to coup the government. Why? I don't understand why. Dude, I hate these fucking retards. Holy, speak about hydrocephalus or macrocephaly or whatever the fuck else. Like, we can look at what he's saying. Like, they're there to coup the government. And Mike Pence is going to have to come through for us. And if he doesn't, that will be a sad, sad day for our country because you're sworn to uphold the Constitution. He's saying come through to overturn the results of the election. Now it's up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down. Anyone you want, but I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Cheer them on to coup the government. Like, that's what they're talking about. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated, that's his ones, the ones that have been illegally slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time, far longer than this 4-year period. We've set it on a much greater course, so much. And I thought, for 4 more years, I thought it would be easy. Like, they're going down to protest the results of the election to encourage them to overturn the election. Like, that's what they're... Like, he didn't even tell them to march peacefully. He just said, I know you'll be marching peacefully. Also, yeah, this was 15 minutes into the speech. The fight like hell thing, if you're not going to have a country anymore, is basically right at the end. You can argue that their cut, they should have been more clear that it was an edit. That's fine. You can argue that. But then to re-quote this like he was telling everybody to be peaceful is so fucking retarded.
Completely misleading, as Trump did not explicitly exhort supporters to go down and fight at Capitol Hill. They even pointed out that this was a key reason why he didn't face federal charges.
That's a fucking lie. You have no idea why somebody was charged or wasn't charged with a thing. You have no idea. That's absolutely... You have no clue about that. Where the fuck is this coming from? Source, the crack pipe lodged up my British ass? The fuck are you talking about?
For incitement to riot. The BBC's Editorial Guidelines and Standards Committee member who wrote this memo raised all of these concerns, among others, with the BBC executive, but they were dismissed, ignored, and even accused of cherry-picking. But this isn't the first time we've seen the BBC criticised for selective editing.
Wow.
Cast your mind back to 2007, and you might remember a documentary trailer that...
God, I don't know anything about that. Don't know. Don't care. Okay. Let's go.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Please tell me you're here to argue about the abortion thing and not some totally irrelevant thing for some pet project that you want me to talk about.
No, it is... No. It's about abortion. It's about abortion.
Okay. What do you got?
I wanted to ask you why you think the violinist argument isn't compelling.
Because it's weirder to be... I think if you wanted to make the violinist argument more analogous, at the very least, it would only be probably analogous to rape, I would say, probably. Because in the violinist argument, you're literally abducted. And I think that if you bake in any kind of sexual consent here, I think the violinist hypothetical changes pretty significantly. So for instance, let's say that you go to a music hall, and outside the music hall, it says, if you want to come in and enjoy this music, that's fine, but there's a 1% chance that you're going to wake up the next morning with a violinist attached to you that you have to keep alive for a while. I think people would change their view of that pretty significantly.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think that, but I think it still gets at the the root of the violinist argument is more that like your body is like that even if the violinist has a right to life, like your body can't be used to like you aren't required like, you know, by law to use their I'm sorry, you aren't required.
Yeah, you're not given positive access to somebody else's body, sure.
Yeah.
But I think that I think that the violinist argument I think can be kind of used for rape, but I don't think it necessarily works for consensual sex if you know that's how kids are made.
Okay, well, I guess I can see it being a weaker argument. The other thing I want to ask you about was the what you just went over with the hydroencephaly thing and that kid that was basically not like I think you said they're like less than human or whatever. I think one thing you kind of have to, when it comes to debating abortion, like I don't understand the problem with just admitting that. Well, I mean, it depends on who you're arguing with. What's the problem with admitting that like you might be ending a life? I don't understand the apprehension in that level because
killing babies.
I mean, maybe on like an optic level, but
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, most people are going to have a revulsion to killing innocent babies.
I suppose so. Oh, well, that's kind of all I had.
Okay. Well, I love you. Be careful.
All right, bye.
You're essentially stating that withdrawing consent is not a thing. I mean, there are some points in life where withdrawing consent is not a thing. Where you do have an obligation, depending upon you do have an obligation, and people would say that you can morally and maybe even legally fail an obligation if you try to. One example of this might be, let's say that I'm Australian and I agree to drive somebody to the center of the country to go on some guided tour thing or something, and I agree to provide all the refreshments and all this other bullshit and all the work, whatever. Well, let's say that when we get to the center, let's say I'm actually like, you know what, actually I really don't feel like doing this. I'm gonna drop your ass off here and I'm leaving. Fuck you. I can't withdraw my consent from that. Once we've embarked on that journey together, like I have some obligation to the people that I'm with to see it through. You could argue maybe security services are the same. If I agree to be the bodyguard for somebody and like an hour in, I'm bored and I just leave, I can't withdraw my consent to do that job at that point. Like this, we had an agreement. Like it would be illegal, I would get charged, and it'd probably be immoral as well. It really depends on what we're talking about. Hello. Good one. Hello. Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
How's it going?
Pretty good.
So what's up? Could I just get, could you just try to give me like the one sentence rundown of your argument?
A person is the name given to the emergent conscious experience of the underlying physical structures of the brain. And that's the thing that we ought to protect. It's the person that we speak of. It's the thing that gets rights. Yeah.
Okay. So for sure. So essentially you're grounding personhood, with the mind. So I just have a few questions with that, or in regards to that.
Okay.
So my first is just, is it being only valuable if they have a mind? As in, like, is it a necessary condition for moral consideration?
Yes.
Okay. Would it be okay if I ran you through like a reductio or a hypothetical just to see like,
yep,
where this leads? Okay, for sure. So just one more follow-up question. So I assume you would say we should extend no moral obligations to beings without a mind.
Correct.
Okay.
I would make it stronger. I would say we don't. I would say already that we don't. And then the example that I would go for there would be like people who are permanently comatose or corpses.
Yeah, or like brain dead people, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, actually one question pertaining to that, like, I would agree that maybe that's the case, but to me that just seems more like a descriptive claim of like societal norms, but not really like a normative commitment as to like how we should treat people without minds.
Well, I'd say we ought to as well, but I'm just, you said the statement of like, we shouldn't do a thing. I understand what you're saying. You gave a when I strengthened your ought claim, I just turned it into an is claim. So I would say that I would strengthen the ought claim, and then I would say that we already actually do the stronger ought claim. Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Okay, got it. No, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, so essentially, here's the reductio. Let's imagine a painter who works on houses.
Okay.
And one day while painting, he falls off his ladder and he hits his head. He suffers a brain injury that disables or severs his thalamocortical connection. So he no longer has the capacity to deploy any sort of conscious experience. And let's say we're in the future, so we actually have the medical capacity to, restore his thalamocortical connection. Do you think that we have a medical obligation to restore his connection, or do all of our commitments to him end as soon as he loses the capacity to instantiate a mind?
I'm not sure. I would have to think about this a lot. Intuitively, I want to say yes, because then I would almost be treating now like a death state isn't really a death state. It's just a sleeping state. But if I think of a more intense, but one that doesn't actually, it's not physically equivalent. It just becomes consequentially equivalent because you have the ability basically to bring somebody back from the dead. And then I try to extend this theoretically into the future. What if we had the ability to resurrect somebody? Do you then also have an obligation to resurrect somebody, assuming it's not cost prohibitive or something? The counter to that would be that, well, when people died initially, they didn't know about the possibility of resurrection, so maybe you could argue that that wasn't on the table there.
Yeah, could I interject maybe?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So I'm pro-choice. I don't know if that's okay, but this is like a reductio that I faced a lot when I was, starting this thing, and it really challenged. I don't know if challenged my beliefs is the right way because I have the same intuitions, but it definitely changed the way I debated. So one of the ways I've tried to combat this reductio is essentially.
So before you combat the reductio, I think it's an interesting question. Because if you have the ability to resurrect somebody and it's cost negligible, it wouldn't cost $1 trillion whatever dollars or whatever, right? Do you have some kind of moral obligation to resurrect that person, assuming you could do it, like you would provide any other life-saving healthcare? I think that's an interesting question. However, I would say that the only reason why we can even ask that question is because there's some sort of continuity argument. There was already a prior existing person that we could ask that question about. So even if I were to come down on either side of that hypothetical, if the anti-abortion person were to try to draw an equivalence between that and a fetus, then my counter retort would be, okay, well, if John fell off the ladder and we're talking about repairing John's brain, we're speaking of a person who existed, and we're talking about bringing this person back into existence. When it comes to the embryo or the fetus, which person are we saving by allowing them to continue their development? There's no person yet to even speak of. So if we were to revive John, it's out of respect for whatever moral consideration we would give to John having already been a person. To allow the fetus to develop wouldn't be analogous, and I would try to make it disanalogous by breaking it there and say the comparison doesn't work. That would be my response to it. Okay, go. You can tell me how you would do this.
Okay, no, that's fine. Let's just go with this. So yeah, I understand. So your symmetry breaker basically is just referring to the fact that one of them is already a person, one was never a person to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I actually think that's a super intuitive position. I think the only problem with that is that has to be more explicitly stated in your value criterion. Because when you say a person is someone with a mind, you need to specify it's someone
Well, I would say it's somebody who has the capacity to deploy a conscious experience. So I think the analogy I would run with here would be something similar to if you have a McDonald's and you go to McDonald's and it's open, that's cool. If you go to McDonald's and it's closed, it doesn't mean the McDonald's no longer exists. If you were to destroy the building, it'll be open again tomorrow. It has everything inside to remain in function as a McDonald's. There's something fundamentally different between a construction site that has a bunch of materials to build a McDonald's and a McDonald's that's just temporarily closed. I would say these in kind are different types of things. And then when it comes to the question about reviving John versus allowing I had another thing there. Never mind. Forget the other thing because that's the thing I was gonna go with. Yeah.
Okay, so I think one thing though is it can be a little tricky when you're like, for example, with the McDonald's analogy, like you have to be really careful, like being super explicit about what you're specifically valuing. Is it that you value like the actual brain parts that let you instantiate consciousness, or do you value consciousness itself? And that gets into some muddy waters, because essentially, right, if you are like, oh, I value the consciousness itself, right, then obviously you can't really run that.
Well, no, I would, but I would say the consciousness emerges from it. So like for McDonald's, I value the ability to order a Big Mac and some fries. I value the meal that I get, but the meal can only emerge if the underlying structure is there to cook the food, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you're basically drawing a clear line between like for example, like a philosophical zombie who has all the relevant like, you know, brain parts there, but it's just not instantiating into any sort of meaningful conscious experience. Like they would be of no value to you because the thing you value is not the actual parts in place. It's the thing that those parts manifest.
Yeah, maybe. I'm really uncomfortable with the philosophical zombie though, because it kind of ontologically breaks my understanding of where consciousness comes from, right?
Yeah, I
like
take
it would be like asking me, like, do you think that torture would be ethical, like if the other person was a masochist? And it's like, well, I mean, I guess yeah, but like you're fundamentally changing that person's relationship with pain, much the same way that with a philosophical zombie, you're fundamentally changing the way that I would imagine consciousness emerges. So like I mean, I would agree, but you've broken apart like a core definition, a core element of what I would say, you know, constitutes a conscious experience, so having the underlying brain parts to deploy it, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree with that. Okay, here, one last thing. Okay, so, here's another thing that I think can come up when you're drawing like, or when you're making the capacity argument, which is just like, it's kind of really easy for the pro-life person to like intuition pump a bunch. Yep. So like, for example, you know, situations like, you know, in a vacuum, is it okay to do anything you want to a hydroanencephalic baby? So like, how do you plan to combat those kinds of reductios or hypotheticals?
I think Trent would be more likely to do that, but I don't think that, I don't know if Lila usually entertains those types, but I would probably, I mean, I could theoretically intuition pump a bunch of those things in return, right? Like given the opportunity to save 100 permanent like hydroencephalo whatever babies versus like 5 real ones, are you saving the 100 or the 5? And then in what other circumstance would you ever make such a trade-off? Like I could spend more time thinking about it, but yeah, I would try to intuition pump other examples.
Okay, so I understand. So you're fine biting the bullet though, that like, yeah, you know, in a vacuum, we can kind of do whatever we want because it's just not a person. We have no obligations.
Yeah, basically I would ask the same about a corpse, right? There might be things that we shouldn't do to corpses, but it's not because we treat the corpses as persons. It's just because we think it's gross to mess with.
Yeah, there's
corpses,
like instrumental wrongs.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think one argument though, like, for example, I don't know if this is like necessarily that convincing, but I would argue like the reason why like necrophilia, for example, is wrong is like not because we have any obligation to the deceased person, but because like, you know, engaging in unconsensual intercourse with, you know, dead bodies, like that becoming like a societally accepted standard could lead to like, you know, people unconsensually engaging in intercourse with, you know, non-deceased people. So like, what's to like prevent a different argument? Is it just that like the same thing wouldn't apply? It's just unrealistic that.
Well, I think there's actually a few ways you could run it down. One, the very first thing I would say is that I think there are several ways that the argument is an auto win. So the first thing I would say is whatever moral consideration we give to corpses comes from other alive people or previously alive people's thoughts and desires, and we don't treat it like a person. So, for instance, I don't think anybody would trade 100 corpses for one real person, right? You should never do that. I would hope not, because they're corpses. And then whatever value a corpse has, you could argue that a corpse has some value, but it comes from a previously alive person. And there's a big influence from other alive people to imagine that corpses will be treated valuable, right? Like if I'm in a society and I know I'm going to die and I've seen other people's corpses, I don't want my corpse to be fucked by some weirdo. So nobody should fuck corpses, but that's coming from my desire to have my own corpse, my estate in a way protected. You can also argue from a weird property rights thing, like, well, once you die, your next of kin possesses your corpse and so they can dictate the treatment of it or whatever. But yeah.
But you don't think those same kind of like external value or arguments apply to the fetus? Like, what if someone made the argument that, well, you know, there's a super strong pro-life coalition that, you know, has an interest in the continuation of the fetus's life? You don't think that, you know, that's like, you don't think that argument would work?
No, because who are you continuing the existence of? Like, these people have no more buy-in anymore to abortion stuff because they're already adults, they're already alive.
What do you mean they have no more buy-in?
As in, I have a buy-in. If I don't want my corpse to be defiled, then I don't want corpses to be defiled. That would be a position that I would maybe even legislatively or legally force on other people. But to say, like, I have an investment in not having abortion happen anymore, why? You can't be aborted. You don't have the same stake in that, I think.
Oh, I guess okay, sorry. I was referring to like when people have an interest in others' corpses not being defiled, not like your own corpse, not like the personal property right, but just the thing is like, I have an interest.
Yeah, there's some property of the corpse you think is special. Yeah, I mean, people can argue that they might have that interest. If they wanted to shift to that, and they think that the interest, the corpse in and of itself has some value, then the point that I would harp on is whatever interest you might have in that corpse, or whatever moral value that corpse has, it's certainly in a completely different bucket or category than human life.
Yeah, well, that's certainly true for the corpse, but as for the fetus, right? Like, so, I mean, it's definitely easier to make the connection that the fetus has the same, like, for lack of a better word, like telos as like you or I do, right? Like with the corpse, the clear distinction is just the lack of life. But when the fetus is alive, which I'm pretty sure you concede, you know, those kind of arguments that just talk about like the nature of the thing are a lot stronger.
That's fine, but the telos of a embryo or whatever is much different than the moral consideration given to a person, because the telos of a thing might be to eventually, like, how would we even define teleologically from start to finish like an embryo? First of all, what is the start? The start, we could argue it could come prior to conception. It was a separated thing between a sperm and egg. But let's say we grant that. Okay, fine. Well, the beginning of this is the egg. Well, what's the end? It's certainly not death. It would have to be the complete and total decomposition of the body, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you're cashing out telos. If telos is like something like, you know, interest satisfaction, then it would just be like when there are no longer interests to the individual, or like when they're no longer capable of forming interests. But you could still make the argument that, you know, prior to the capacity to form interests, there's some kind of like, you know, biological development to enable said thing, right? So that could all be bundled under telos, and that's a way that you could like exclude corpses, but include the developing fetus.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that you can have a telos for a thing, but I would argue that the moral consideration for said thing arises as part of personhood, which is like a component of the telos, not the entirety of the telos. And I think that cashes out when the person has to constantly say that there is a biological process happening, there's a development happening, because then I would point to the fact that, like, in no other part of any other thing ever, unless you can think of an example, does anybody ever use the development of a thing as having the equivalence to the thing itself. So when somebody says the development of a thing, I think they have to be careful, because I'm going to harp on that and say, oh, well, if you're saying that it's because it's developing a thing, then that means that it doesn't have the thing. So we can't point to the value of that thing necessarily. It's definitely not the same. You can try to say there might be some similarities or one thing leads to the next, but it's definitely not the same. And I would argue the moral consideration isn't there yet because the personhood hasn't arisen. And there's a bunch of other like hypotheticals I think that I would tease that out on. For instance, if you were to arrest the development of a thing after personhood emerges, the conscious experience emerges, then I think we would all safely say, okay, well, you can't kill this thing. Like a super mentally retarded 5-year-old, you can't kill it. But if you were to arrest the development prior to the brain forming to have a conscious experience, I think way more people intuitively say, oh, yeah, I guess, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One more kind of line of questioning. So, you know, with a mind, would you say that, you know, a mind, like we've already established that a mind is a necessary and sufficient condition for moral consideration. So my question is then just like continuity of consciousness, or like the quality of the mind in a sense, does that allot one person more value? Like, for example, would like someone who is like, you know, a mentally retarded 5-year-old, would they have like less value to you and like some kind of trolley problem reductio than like, you know, you or I, or someone who's like, you know, not retarded?
Probably. But the difference between a thing, I don't think necessarily speaks to the category of the thing itself. Like some chairs might be more comfortable than other chairs, but the most uncomfortable chair is still a chair and is treated as such. Same thing with humans. Some humans might be more valuable than other humans in a variety of different ways, but a human is still a human, or rather the mind is still the mind and still is granted all the moral considerations that any mind would be granted, even if you had to pick one or the other. Like, just because things have a moral equivalence doesn't mean that they would be ranked up the same value-wise if you had to pick between one or the other.
Yeah, so it's to say like there's almost a threshold at which point once you cross, like there kind of is no way, or like we basically in practice we wouldn't value some people over others because like once you cross that threshold, like you have the right to life essentially.
Kind of. I mean, we do. I mean, like in medical triage, if we only have so many medical supplies available, then you have to start making difficult choices. But like this is like a limitation problem. It's not like some people just don't have the right to life. It's like a limitation of resources or something, right?
Mm-hmm. And then how do you draw the distinction then between like these kinds of people and animals?
I don't say human cash. I just do human. The only ontology that we can even hope to understand, and that's debatable, is a human mind. Just because the human mind is like our own, theoretically, you could be solipsistic if you want, but that's gay. But to pretend that you can speak confidently of what an animal mind is like, I don't think anybody can confidently assert that. Again, we can't even speak of other people's minds truly. So to say that we can speak of an animal mind, I think is not possible. But I don't know if Lila's going to want to do a vegan debate.
Yeah, I think my one response to that, though, is like, why can't we engage in some kind of like Pascalian-esque wager, right? Like, let's say that animals do, like, there's some epistemic ambiguity. So let's say animals do have, some kind of value rooted in a mind. Then, like, it seems like what we do to them is like, super duper immoral. So it's like, I feel like there's some gray area, though. Like the probability versus impact ratio, I feel like is skewed in such a way that, like, it seems like in some instances, it feels like you have to bite the bullet and at least extend some consideration to animals. But you don't.
I mean, it depends on how you want to go down that. What does the Pascalian wager mean? Because Pascal's wager implies some ultimate truthfulness at the end. It would be strange that the ultimate truth of the universe is that it's immoral to factory farm animals that also happen to taste really good to us, because one points to some objective moral fabric of the universe. But if there was one, man, what a horrible thing. Like, most people should be disgusted by rape. Most people should be disgusted by murder. Intuitively, we've outlawed what we all feel like these things are wrong, and then our laws reflected as such. It would be very strange if there was some morally real truth of the universe that also, like, intuitively feels completely the opposite to us. But you could also argue from an anti-realist perspective as well. But also, fuck. Yeah, I don't think Lila's going to argue for a vegan debate. So yeah.
Fair enough. I don't mean Pascalian wager in the sense that like it's an ultimate truth that, God exists or like something like that. And like, that's what's grounding it. Uh-huh. I just mean in the sense where like Pascal's wager is in like, it doesn't, as in like, we can believe in God for the hope that, we'll go to heaven or whatever, or something like that. And this just in the sense that like the investment you make to like believe, or in this case, the analogy would be like to not consume animal products is like super minimal compared to like the potential impact.
Yeah, but potentially. I guess it just depends on how confident you are about us ever being able to know about an animal mind, or how confident somebody is that they would say that an animal mind is a mind like ours, I guess. So like if somebody's like, it's like 0.1%, then that wager is probably not very compelling. If somebody's like, it's like 50-50, well, then that wager becomes a lot more compelling, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you don't think the same kind of like epistemic ambiguity to the mind applies to the fetus? Like we can be confident that the fetus's mind is like different enough from ours not to be valuable?
I think based on everything that I've ever seen or heard of related to like neurodevelopmental research, yeah. But I, like, if it was the case, like I had a hypothetical for this, so I don't think it'll get that deep. But like if somebody could develop a pill and when you take it, every experience you've ever had, every memory you've ever had comes to you, you're able to remember everything. If you took that pill and then you could remember being a single cell zygote, then I might change my opinion completely on abortion. But if you took that pill and you have an awareness of like floating in the womb and you're at like 20 to 24 weeks or whatever, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, fine. That's when your awareness starts. So it's whatever. Yeah. Now, obviously, I don't know realistic if that could ever be developed, but yeah. And then I would ask my opponent, I guess the same. If you could remember everything you've ever experienced or had an experience of, if that memory were to start at 22 weeks versus the moment of conception, what would your feeling be on that? Would it change you or move the needle at all?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's some gray area though, because like at that point, would that even be valuable experience? Like floating around in the womb? Like I feel like you can even take a more hardline position and say like, that's not even like a valuable kind of experience.
Well,
so, like,
it's a mind that's capable of like perceiving itself and having a human mind. I think you just kind of have to value all of those bucket wise. Like
yeah, I guess optics wise, like you might as well.
Well, even threshold, like who's to say what a valuable experience is or not? Like if you're a neat living at home, your mom's base. I understand this is infinitely more complex than just a fetal experience, but well, no, yeah, I would just say that you should bucket it differently. If somebody really wanted to get into it though, then it's possible that you maybe could bucket it differently and talk about it only because it's in conflict with the bodily autonomy rights of the mother. You're hitting on like one of the hardest things aside from like killing somebody, which is like inhabiting somebody's body for months and months at a time to survive. So maybe that crosses some threshold there, or it's not quite the threshold of like a human experience, but like something slightly less than that would come in conflict with the mom's bodily autonomy. Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what she'll be running? Like what kind of argument? Is that publicly available?
I mean, I've watched all of her arguments. It's going to mostly be this weird right to life argument, the 14th Amendment, and then her trying to argue that like a zygote at the moment of conception is a fetus, or a zygote is a human or whatever because of DNA. But I think that there are several ways that this is not very compelling, but I don't see how she responds to them.
Yeah, I think the best response to the human thing is just like the example of like, brain dead people. Like it doesn't seem like we have any obligation to extend to brain dead people. And like, let's say we said that, when like a doctor pulls the plug on a brain dead person, that's murder. Like that'd be super highly intuitive that like doctors, are just like fulfilling their medical duty and pulling the plug, like all of them would be murderers. That seems like really wrong.
Yeah, although her response to that would be, well, they have a fetus as a future like ours, and the brain dead person doesn't. But then I go to the the potentiality of a thing is not the same as a thing itself. If you want to give, and then I think you run into an issue because if you want to give moral consideration to the potentiality of a thing, then I don't understand how things like contraception don't count as murder. And I think you can use that same argument to discredit all of the this is a child of rape and he's alive and we're so happy that he's here today. Like, isn't it like good thing he wasn't aborted, right? Like, I don't know why you couldn't run that argument back, an hour before conception and go, true. Also, good thing the mother was raped, right? Because if the mother wasn't raped, we wouldn't have this person either, right? I think this is an unsatisfying argument.
Well, I think there's a pretty good response to why aren't sperm valuable? Like, why is contraception not a moral wrong? I think it's just like they would just argue that it's not a subject until conception, right? Like,
yeah, but I think subject highly implies personhood or mind. No,
not necessarily. Like, aren't animals subjects? And you wouldn't consider them persons?
I'm thinking subjective. When you say subject, what do you mean by subject? You mean like just a thing, like an object? You might be using subject philosophically correct, and I'm retarded. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. By subject, I mean, technically, if you want to go into, like numerically identical being, but essentially all I take subject to be is just like, it's the same, like, for example, that fetus, like at the point of conception, certain traits of that being have been locked in a sense. So like, we can basically and this kind of gets into like mereology, which is the debate's definitely not going to go there, but it's the same being, right? Like it has the same biological, almost like telos to it in a sense, but you don't even need to go there, right? You can just say like, it's numerically identical in the sense that that fetus is the eventual person in a way that like the sperm and the egg don't necessarily constitute that like individual.
I don't understand though so there's several different ways that I would hit at this. So one would be, there'd be cute analogies. What do you do about like monozygotic twins? Can you explain teleologically, I guess, what happens when a single zygote divides and splits and two separate twins come from it? What happened? Did one person die and give birth to two people, or did one person split into two people, or what? Yeah, what does that mean? What's happening there?
Yeah, I think it would just be a single subject became two. And then each subject is like numerically distinct from the original, but the original was like a single whole, if that makes sense.
I don't know if she would go with that. The soul. So did God put two souls in the one zygote, or like I can't think of any other time in life or any other example of being able to split one person into two people. But like, let's say that you could do that. Like,
I think the soul thing is good though.
Sure. Well, like, why couldn't? I just don't understand. So I want to say that like, let's say I don't want to say like a zygote on its own won't develop into anything, right? Like it's a single fucking cell. I'm sure it has enough to split a few times, but it needs nutrients. It needs a ton of stuff from the mom. But why couldn't I say similarly to like a sperm and an egg? Like these things need to be brought together via sex, the same way that a zygote needs nutrients delivered via the mom's, whatever, the tube bullshit, the umbilical cord. Like what's like so fundamentally different here? Just the creation of the single cell zygote?
Well, if your argument is that like it's dependent on something external for like continued survival, then like that would apply to like newborn babies too. But maybe that's not what you're saying.
Well, no, because for the newborn baby thing, I can point to the newborn baby and just say that like that is a person. It's had personhood for at least a few months. But if you're arguing, not you, but like if the other person's arguing like, well, personhood's not what matters. It's the origination of this being. then I would say, well, what? But the being, like, I feel like the being doesn't have any of the properties that we would care about, unless you're just saying that like the being existing itself is the thing we care about because it will develop into something else.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like the two ways to ground that are either telos, right? Like as a human, this thing has like some kind of rational disposition for development, right? So ending that would be like contrary to the human telos, right? Which like
can you talk to me? How do you bracket off the telos at death? Why does the telos end at death and not total body decomposition?
Oh, because okay, for sure. So like let me just pull up like some just basic account of like what human telos is, because essentially it'd be like all the things that are part of that would end at death, like they would just be the natural end. But I'll pull it up.
Yeah, and then whatever you pull up, this is going to be my counter argument, because if somebody the telos can be compelling if we believe in purposes or whatever designations for things, whatever bullshit, which I don't, but whatever. But if I were to run it, if somebody would say, well, this is the telos of a human, this is how they're supposed to develop ontologically, this whatever, and I would say, okay, well, where does the telos of human stop? Is it after the corpse decomposes? And they go, well, no, it stops at a point. The point is probably going to be my point of like when the brain ceases to function. I go, okay, well, why doesn't telos begin at that point then? Why would you end it at a point and begin it at a different point? Like it seems like there's different qualifiers for that. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think the reason is because one of them is like biological telos, which is like some sort of like self-preservation or like growth that's like independent of a mind. So like that would obviously be present before the origination of a mind, but it would end at death.
When you say biological telos, what do you mean by that?
Here, I'll pull it up.
Sure. Are you on a laptop?
Yeah.
Jesus, I hear that keyboard.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay.
Oh no, you don't have to apologize. I heard it. It's okay. I feel the keyboard of the laptop runs through my veins.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's biological telos, the intrinsic orientation of an organism toward maintaining, reproducing, and perfecting its own life form. So it says, in other words, it is what the body and its systems are for. So like essentially how we could cash this out in the abortion example is that the embryo has a certain like essentially it requires nutrients, right, from the mother, but it's using the nutrients. It knows what to do with it to an extent. So basically it needs something to realize its telos, but that doesn't mean that it's not part of its telos, if that makes sense.
And then why can't I say the same, like a human being is the telos of an egg and a sperm, when these things are created explicitly and literally to utilize each other to create like a human that, whatever.
Yeah, so like you might be able to say that like the telos of the sperm is to like conjoin with an egg and vice versa with an egg. But the objection would be that a new subject is formed when the sperm and egg conjoin. So like it's a new subject, therefore it has new telos. Yeah,
but then I would ask, so I think, okay, so this is what I would think is the challenging part of the conversation for the other person. It's difficult to navigate for me though. But so the thing is the reason why we want to appeal to telos is because we're trying to escape a particular biological statement about a thing, and we're trying to point to like a broader overall like macro developmental perspective, I think. Would you agree with that? Like we don't want to say like this one cell has these parts. We want to say, well, no, on a broader level, this is how a thing develops, and this broad thing is like what we're protecting, right?
Yeah, I mean we're
telos.
We're trying to protect like its purpose in a sense.
Yeah. So then the thing that I would say is what I would accuse the other person of is it feels like we would just have to start playing a dangerous dance where I would say, well, the telos of a sperm or the telos of an egg is to combine with the other thing and then to create a human. And then they would want to move the argument to the biological perspective of like, well, no, hold on. The unique or individual subject might be created at the moment of conception. But then I would say, well, if we want to move to like a biological argument, then I feel like we're in a different realm than talking about the teleological arguments. That's what I would feel.
I think those two aren't distinguished like that. I think telos encompasses both rationality, like the pursuit of virtue, but also biological development. Because essentially like someone who like subscribes to this view would say that like telos is all encompassing of like what it is to be a human. And part of that is like biological development that's independent of a mind.
Yeah, but how could telos not include, for the development of a human, say for divine conception, the introduction of a sperm to an egg?
Because before that, the telos you're talking about is not the telos of a human. It's the telos of a sperm or the telos of an egg.
Okay, and then what would prevent me from saying... Well, I understand that. What would prevent me from saying then, okay, well, I would say that the telos of a zygote is to become an embryo, the telos of an embryo is to become a fetus, and the telos of the fetus is to become a person. Why couldn't I bracket things off like that? Why couldn't I challenge the other person and say, you're using an arbitrary distinction, so I'll use an arbitrary distinction?
Well, I mean, they wouldn't, to them it's not arbitrary, right? It's like grounded in some sort of like metaphysical purpose. So you would have to they would probably just ask you for the justification as to why you're bracketing it off that way.
Yeah, but I feel like
right?
their justifications aren't teleological. Their justifications become biological. Like, well, it happens to be that there's one zygote and it's like one cell of a thing. But then I feel like I could argue, okay, well, how is that one cell of a thing? How is that? Like, I would argue in some ways a zygote is more similar to an individual sperm or an egg than a zygote is to a trillion cell baby that comes out at the end of the day. Like, how would we bracket these off? Like, why would we say one is more similar to the other or the other is less similar to the other?
Yeah, that's a good point. So again, they would just make the distinction between they would just have to make the subject distinction. They would say regardless of the fact that, on a cellular level, the zygote is more similar to a sperm and an egg than it is the trillion cell baby. Purpose is beyond biological characteristics in terms of form, right? It can they're not saying but then real quick, if it's beyond biological characteristics, how is it literally constrained to the moment of conception and not prior to the sperm and the egg? Because it's just a different subject. That's something metaphysical that's being indexed to a biological function. The same way you value the mind, right? It's the same way you value brain parts because they instantiate the mind, right? You don't actually care about the brain parts, you care about the mind.
Yeah,
so it's
but you just said, their thing is indexed to the subject, right? It's indexed to a biological function. I mean, mine is kind of as well, but the function is the communicating brain parts, right? So if they want to index it to the zygote, I would say, well, why can't I index it to the brain or the mind, right? How do we fight one over the other for that? Especially because I say your indexing stops at brain death, but your indexing starts at what I would argue is an arbitrarily earlier moment. My indexing stops at brain death, and it starts at the brain beginning. So how could they argue for their indexing over mine?
I mean, again, the argument would just be over what's included under telos. If telos is only made up of things that originate from the mind, which is definitely, which is going to be part of their thing. They're going to say that rationality and whatever these kinds and the pursuit of virtue are part of telos. Okay. The thing is just you're trying to exclude purely biological functions and they're trying to include purely biological functions. And the reason they're able to do that, and of the specific subject, right? So I think basically your 2 points of attack, which I think, is what you've been outlining, is you either need to try to blur the distinction between the subject of the zygote and the sperm and the egg, or you need to just make the argument that the valuable part of telos comes from the mind and not biological functions.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Nice talking to you.
I love you. Be careful.
Yeah. See ya.
I wonder if I write this out as a different thing. Maybe I will. I'll add this here. Hello, you're up. What do you got? Good one. Granddad, you're up. Going once. Going. Hi, what do you got?
Yo. I just need to get rid of the echo. Sorry, 1 sec. There we go. Cool. I had this idea whilst watching. Have you seen the Dinesh D'Souza, Alex O'Connor debate?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. One, you should definitely watch that before you debate Dinesh. Very entertaining. Two, there's something that happens in it several times. I think it's a bit of a trap, and I think that you're accidentally falling into it as well. So throughout the debate, they're having this like religious debate.
Wait, is this about abortion, or is this going to be about something totally different?
About abortion. This is about abortion. I just need to like.
Okay. Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Okay, go for it.
And I'm nervous and all the rest of it.
No problem. You're good.
So in the debate, they're debating the Bible, and Alex's strongest points are all regarding the Old Testament. And Dinesh, throughout the course of this conversation, he will fight quite heavily on a lot of the New Testament things. He'll fight quite heavily on the Old Testament things that he likes, but he's willing to bite the bullet on a load of the Old Testament stuff that doesn't suit his like way of thinking. And it's because he'll call it the Jewish Bible. He doesn't even call it the Old Testament most of the time. He refers to it as the Hebrew Bible or the Jewish Bible. It's a bit of a ploy they're playing. Where
how does he get around the Jesus?
You can choose from the Bible.
When Jesus does a Sermon on the Mount, the Pharisees try to trap him, asking him if he is here to defy the law of Moses or whatever, and he says, "I'm not here to overturn the law. I'm here to fulfill the law." At least in Catholics, I've never been taught that like the Old Testament is something to be forgotten or doesn't apply anymore. I've never heard that. Does he have a different?
No. So he will agree with all of that, and then they just do this like knowing wink and a nudge to their audience. They play these things off. I don't know. A lot of these attacks that you'll try to like lay on somebody like Lila as well, in regards to the Old Testament, they'll be fine with it because they'll sort of slyly use that within their audience as an attack upon Jews. Quite simply, it's like, you know how Kanye believes that Jewish doctors are responsible for all the abortions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that kind of thing on black people. Like he says that Jews are aborting all the black babies.
I mean, I guess, but then I got to just ask: are there any passages in the New Testament that speak to abortion? And I don't think there are.
Yeah, probably not. But I'm just like saying that I think this is a trap that they're playing, and people keep falling into it.
Okay.
And it's somewhere they're going to wriggle around you for sure.
Sure. I don't think the Bible arguments will come up much, but I mean, I'll keep it in mind.
Okay. Good luck, man.
All right. Love you, bye. Kafka Coffee, you're up. Going once. Going twice. Not Saitvis, you're up.
Hello.
Hi.
So, for Baby Jackson, right? You have a good response, I think, but that's not the purpose that the Baby Jackson serves. Like the purpose to bringing him up is to say that there was this little baby boy who was very happy, who had happy parents, and so on. So your response should not just be say that he had no brain, was good to kill, but to have like a bullet for her to bite. Like that lady who was dead but had to be kept alive because she was pregnant.
Sure.
Something like that, right?
Yeah, sure. Or that if parents, I mean, like, I feel like the obvious, maybe I'd have to work it into a better thing or whatever, but like, I feel like the obvious answer would be if a couple wants to conceive because they really want to have a family, then they conceive and they find out their baby is going to be a Jackson baby. Are you telling me that you would force that family basically to never have another kid? Because they would have to have that child. It would be full-time care, and they never have a normal, happy, healthy family because they're forced now to take care of the child with no brain. I feel like that would be the bullet I would make her bite on that.
But I think the strength of her argument is that the Jackson thing is like a real thing. It's not hypothetical.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get those real examples.
Well, he should have been really aborted, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the examples that you need to have for her as well should also be real people. Like that lady who was kept alive in Texas, I think.
Sure, but I don't understand how the lady in Texas has anything to do with necessarily the Jackson example.
No, it's not a straight up response. It's just that at some point in the argument, you need to bring it to a real bullet like that to bite.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay.
That's number one. And number two, if we value not just the body but the mind, right? What if we scan the mind, like we scan a brain with a computer and have a simulation of the brain with a mind in it, right? Do we value that? Do we give that moral value?
I don't know. That's a huge metaphysical question that's beyond us right now.
I think it
that's
runs
at least like ChatGPT 7.0.
No, but with ChatGPT, it's a bit different because it's like a totally different thing. But if we have a human mind that we scan, that's like a brain, right?
Sure.
And then I think it runs into sort of a contradiction between your moral intuitions. Because let's say we have two minds that we scan and we make them interact in a virtual world. Well, we're to E33, right? We're with a painting example. And there your intuition is that we have no moral value for those minds.
Sure.
And I probably agree because like if you have 1,000 of them in a box and like you say, I'm going to rape your family if you don't let me keep this box running, right? Like 1,000 people is not worth, 1,000 virtual people is not worth one real one.
Sure. I have no answer. It would break a lot of.
Yeah,
it would just be impossible. I have no idea. Yeah. It would be like discovering alien. Like it completely breaks our philosophical like mold of the world. It's like trying to contemplate. Well, not
but I think,
but yeah. But I seriously doubt she'll go in that direction. That's like a really.
But I think from her point of view, that's a very easy example to answer. Like, right? She says, we value human bodies. We don't value that whatever that thing is.
Well, but we don't value human bodies because once a body is dead, the corpse, she doesn't treat it like a human, right? Or person.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Or whatever the soul is, I don't know. Her answer would be just something to think about.
Okay.
That's it.
I love you.
Bye.
Traceless 1X. What up?
Hello, Destiny. What's up? So I was looking at Lila Rose's viewpoints and how fucking stupid they are.
Okay.
One of the things she believes is that using contraception causes divorce. That's fucking like where's the source of that though?
I watched a video she did with some crazy lady, Dr. Janet Smith. She's got a lot of dumb views on, obviously all of these people do, on like contraception and shit. And I've got a lot of big research that I'll probably read through these either today or tomorrow just so I can go through these more. But like making contraception and abortion and everything available to people seems to increase like all the health outcomes, happiness outcomes, like all the other outcomes are increased like pretty substantially. Yeah, I don't disagree.
The other thing I believe she said that also is using hormonal birth control is massively unhealthy.
Yeah.
Does she have like data for that though, or is she just like pulling?
That's just like, it's the MAGA conservative popular, and it's really the evangelical populist talking point. Basically, if you fuck with your hormones as a woman, it's evil, but they don't want to say it's evil, so they just say that like birth control makes you crazy or all that. That one weird Lindy Lee chick, the 31-year-old Asian girl who switched from being a DNC operative to now being like fucking epic centrist or whatever. She says that like she was mind controlled by birth control for 10 years or whatever. Like they just have birth control is just like a magical. It's like the anti-ivermectin to them. That like as soon as a woman takes a birth control pill, it turns her into this like satanic, evil, sex-having monster that is completely and totally unhappy with all of life and wants to murder babies. It's just it's a retard position that's not backed by data anywhere.
What is oh my god, I was trying to think what I was gonna say. So do you believe that all these people that in general that are pro-lifers, do you think they only give a fuck up until it's a fetus, and then it's kind of just like fuck you, you've been born, now you're gonna pay taxes?
No, that's a common talking point by a lot of left-leaning people that want to epically own them, but almost every one of these big pro-life conservative people will super bite bullets on providing more funding to the family, providing more funding for child health care and all of that. Like they'll immediately bite those bullets and they'll look good in front of their audience doing it. So I never hit on that. You almost all of those conservatives will massively support some type of like early childhood family funding.
Do you think you could use like it's kind of like with the whole like cutting costs of healthcare and stuff, isn't that like an anti-pro-life stance to take though? Like
potentially, but you're going to get lost in the weeds arguing on fact there, because they're going to argue that like, well, they didn't cut it from families, they just cut it from lazy people, and then you're going to get like lost descriptively in terms of what's happening. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thank you for giving me some time, but like I hope you wipe the floor with Lila Rose. You probably will, but like I'll be watching that, so I definitely look forward to seeing that on YouTube wherever you're gonna have it.
Okay.
But good luck to you, Destiny.
Thanks. I love you. Be careful. Hello.
Hey.
How's it going?
Yeah, let me just sort out my audio a little sec. Can you hear me okay?
Pretty quiet.
Bring it up.
Well,
Yeah, good.
Lower, like 20% or something.
Low, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Good.
good.
Yeah, let's go. What do you got?
Honestly, not too much. I just wanted to say about the like the breath of life thing, talking about like the sort of biblical narrative that, like, you know how in Genesis, like God breathes the breath of life into man.
Sure.
That there's an old biblical sort of like theory that life sort of happens when that first breath occurs, and like God sort of like breathes the breath of life into the baby, and the baby cries and all that stuff. So just that basically.
Okay.
Yep. Enjoy.
All right. I love you.
Bye.
Sample text. What do you got for us?
Yeah, what's up? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you some questions about the consequence of your view. I think Leela would probably try to do something like that. So if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, right. So according to you, if I remember correctly, you know, we should care about beings insofar as they have past or present experience, right? Or well, what's the conjunction?
I don't usually use the continuity thing much at all, but yeah. I guess,
Okay.
I guess you could, but like there are weird edge hypotheticals to test that. Like, what if you completely replaced a person's mind between A and B? Could you kill them in between that time? And but I don't know. I don't usually use continuity of existence.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I guess one thing, you know, future like ours, that's a big argument from the pro-abortion, from the pro-life people. And I guess so do you think there's intrinsic value in future people? Because you know, like, what if you had a button and it spawns like very happy people?
What kind of intrinsic value?
You know, intrinsic just means like valuable in its own, not insofar as it like achieves something else, like valuable for its own sake.
I mean, if those people are brought into existence, they have value, sure.
Right. Okay. But you wouldn't say, you know, like, if I remember correctly, I think it was on Team Pool. Someone asked you, like, oh, if a woman did meth, would that be wrong according to you while she's pregnant? And you said yes, because it will bring about a human that it will be fucked because of that, right? Well, how can one say, you know, if we had a button and it's your choice to press it or not, if you don't press it, nothing happens. Still seems like we are obligated to press that button if it like spawns a million happy people. Or, like, if someone told me, oh, I could have made the world.
Why would you be obligated to bring more happy people into existence?
You're just passing on like the opportunity to create just a million happy people. The world would be much better, no?
Well, making the world better isn't the same as an individual thing of moral consideration, right? Like, I don't know if you, I think it's a different type of, I don't think it's necessarily related here. Whether or not it would make the world better, or whether or not you have like an obligation to the currently existing people or whatever. Like, it would be an argument about the preferences of the currently existing people, not future peoples that don't exist yet.
Okay, sure. What about stuff like, you know, I don't really care about that, but I assume I've had abortion debates where that was brought up. What about like stuff like the continuity of the human race, right? If you don't necessarily care about future people or something, what if it's like the last person on Earth and a woman can choose to have an abortion or not? Is that permissible then to just end the human species if she chooses to have an abortion there?
I mean, you can have that argument, but it has nothing to do with like the whether or not the fetus is alive or not, right? Because you could mandate all sorts of stuff at that point, you know, like bisexual girlfriends or breeding tubes or whatever, like, or IVF, yeah.
No, that makes sense. Okay, and last thing before I go. So you say, you know, she thinks you're a human, fully fledged. And I asked you this yesterday, but I want to flesh it out further in chat. So, you know, she thinks life begins in conception and then you're a person and you're like so much valuable. Oh my God, so awesome. Right, and you said, oh well, based on this logic, it's entailed that we should register them in the population, give them citizenship, and if they die, we should count that as a murder. We should investigate women with miscarriages. But according to your standards, like when they gain consciousness, that's around like 16 to 24 weeks. Do you think, if we have a pregnancy that's above like 25 weeks, we should count that as another person in the population? If she has a miscarriage, we should count that as like a death in our records. And if she has a miscarriage or an abortion, we should count that as murder, or count that in the homicide rate and whatnot. Is that a bullet you're biting?
I mean, I could, yeah. It would just depend on the, yeah. I think very conveniently my thing lines up with like every fetus is viable, I think, at like 30, or I think every fetus is viable basically now at like 22 to 23 weeks. So you could basically deliver all of them anyway. So assuming the fetus isn't like fucked developmentally or there's like it's going to die, then I would have no problem biting the bullet. Yeah, sure, we should deliver all of these or whatever, yeah.
I will say on this point, if someone brings up a point like that, I will say one of the most crucial differences is not even abortions per se. It's IVF. According to them, IVF is like huge numbers of murders because that's like a lot of fertilized eggs that don't make it and only one makes it, but it's still fertilized. So if your standard is like 25 weeks and so on, then IVF is not something that's counted as homicide according to you, but it is homicide under them. So that's like a big reductio that applies to them and not to you, even if you think the population registry and whatnot is uncomfortable and you have to bite it. Sure. So that's like one, if it ever happens that you need to concede that, highlight the fact that IVF is still like genocide under them. Okay, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else. Have fun. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. SF Sorrow, you're up. What's up?
Oh, hey. It's still fertilized. So if your standard is like...
Hey, what's up? So I wanted to clarify your position. So if zygotes were persons at the moment of conception, would you just be pro-life?
Yeah, probably. I think you'd have to be.
Okay, so I want to give you a hypothetical. Let's say person A shoots person B, and person B will die unless he gets a blood transfer from person A. Would you say that person A should be obligated to give person B their blood?
I feel like morally, I would say yes. Legally, there might be reasons why that I'm not aware of right now why you'd say no, but legally, I almost wouldn't be opposed to that. I think I'd be like on the fence for that one.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just thinking that if you weren't to bite the blood on that, then you'd have to say that, a person who would murder somebody has less duty to their victim than a mother does to a zygote or a fetus.
A person who murders their victim would have less of an obligation to them than a mother does to their zygote. Who's
if you took
to that position or what?
The pro-life position would be committed to that because they're saying a mother has to, go through with pregnancy, but it's not necessarily clear if a person who would murder somebody would have to give up their blood to save them. And that's not really, a precedent we have in law.
Oh.
That I'm aware of.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay. I like that one. That's cute.
And that's more on the bodily autonomy side of things. And I wanted to give another hypothetical. Let's say I had a magic wand, and if I tap somebody with it, it'll simulate all of the physical components of pregnancy, but without actually creating a fetus.
It would simulate... Wait, hold on. Wait. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Okay, I just want to write down that last argument. Okay, sorry. Okay, do that again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's say I have a magic wand. If I tap somebody with it, it'll simulate all of the physical aspects of pregnancy without actually creating a, fetus or zygote. Would it be justified to kill that person in self-defense if that was the only way to prevent them from tapping you with the wand?
Yes, I would say absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so then if somebody takes a pro-life position, then if we say that that's the sort of thing that would warrant lethal self-defense, then we're saying that the fetus has sufficient moral worth to subject a woman to that sort of experience. The sort that we would normally say justifies lethal self-defense.
Sure. So I understand that argument. So I feel like mens rea, or I feel like state of mind, in the worst cases, it won't matter. But I think that there is a Venn diagram. There's like a middle group of cases where it does matter. So let's say hypothetically, there was a 4-year-old pedaling some kind of bike vehicle that was going to run you over, and the only way to stop it was to push a button and blow up the bike vehicle. Okay, whether it's an adult, whether it's a 10-year-old, whether it's a 2-year-old, you're going to be killed or like seriously maimed. I think that you can argue, even with a lack of agency or criminal intent or malicious intent on the part of the operator, you are allowed to defend yourself there, right? Now, I think there's a category of actions where, let's say that a person, let's say you're even in your home and a person comes up and they're like, I'm gonna punch you, I'm gonna hit you, okay? Let's say you see an adult coming up to you and he's like, I'm gonna punch you, and he walks up to you and you see him coming. I think if it's an adult, they know what they're doing. They can understand you saying, hey, like, I don't want you in my house. I don't want you to come and hit me or whatever. And they're walking up to you. I think you have a right to lethal self-defense there. I think that if it's like a 4 or 5-year-old like playing and they're like in a game and they think they can run at people's houses and hit them, I don't know if you necessarily would have the same right there to lethal self-defense, even if you were made to suffer the hit, because it wouldn't be maiming, it wouldn't kill you, anything like that. I think there's a group of people who don't have necessarily the capacity for the mens rea, for the criminal intent, for the super malicious intent to do a thing, that you wouldn't have that same right to lethal self-defense for if the non-developed people were doing something that would kill you, or if more developed people were doing something that wouldn't kill you but know better. And I think that the argument for pregnancy is like in that bucket, to where I use the word inconvenience, and I know it triggers the fuck out of women or people that argue this thing, but like generally speaking, pregnancy is a very large inconvenience, but it's generally speaking, it shouldn't be life-threatening. And the baby is not making the choice. They don't have the agency to maliciously attack your body, right? Such that like if it was an adult or somebody that knew better that could tap the magic wand on you, absolutely you could kill that person. But if somebody who doesn't know, they don't have the agency to do that, and in a way you're like, I think for rape, it might get harder to argue this, but like at least for ordinary sex, there's the possibility of conceiving a child. I think it becomes harder if you grant that that's like a life, that like, well, I can lethally defend myself against a situation that I knew was possible of occurring when there's a person who doesn't know better,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're distinguishing between an innocent aggressor and like a villainous aggressor.
Correct. There are types of actions an innocent aggressor can be killed for, but there are types of actions that the malicious aggressor could be killed for, but I think the innocent aggressor maybe couldn't be killed for. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So let's go with this hypothetical. Let's say somebody drugs another person such that other person can't be considered to be in the right mind to commit certain actions. And let's say they're about to kill another person.
Sure.
Is it justified to kill that drugged person in self-defense?
Yeah, always, because even if they're the innocent aggressor, if it's going to be like killing the other person, then yeah, you're always justified. Yeah, killing or maiming or something.
Okay, so let's say it's not killing. Let's say it's like something like serious or substantial bodily injury.
Then I think you still could. Then the argument for pregnancy, personally, I know there's a trigger. I don't know if it would count as serious or substantial. Maybe it would.
Yeah, so
I don't know. I'd have to think.
I think it could be argued that it is, because there's protracted and obvious disfigurement.
For 9 months.
Which is typically,
it's a long time, yeah.
Yeah, for 9 months.
Like somebody put the thing in chat yesterday, like if pregnancy were 9 years, like intuitively my position almost 180s to where I think the bodily autonomy self-defense argument actually is totally valid. 9 years, I think, is a lot different. 9 months is a long time. If it was 9 days, would you agree that the intuition flips where it's like, okay, well, you could do a thing for 9 days, right? Rather than killing a baby.
It's kind of, like there's some gray area there where like it's not clear. I do think that 9 months is on the other end of that. Like it's a pretty long time.
Sure.
With the sort of injury, especially if it's something that we would normally say that you could kill in self-defense if that were to happen to you. And I would say that it's furtherly overdetermined because the fetus has less consciousness than like a normal person, right?
I don't generally do the like different stages of consciousness. I think you kind of have to binary that one. Otherwise you get kind of weird. Like as a person who's severely inebriated, is that person less conscious than an ordinary one? I don't know what the names are, but I think you'd give it a different phenomenon to describe it. I don't know if I'd say I'm less conscious. Like if I'm waking up in the morning or sleeping, I don't know if I'd say that person's less conscious. They're just like in a different state of awareness or something, but...
Yeah, well, if we were to use like animals as an example, like maybe they'd be at like rabbit level, but they're not having these complex thoughts that, you know, normal humans are.
I feel like the conscious experience thing, I don't know if I would tie it to like cognitive stuff, like how complex your thoughts are. I think it has to be a general awareness or experience thing.
Yeah, I would say even that, because their brains aren't as developed in those areas.
Maybe.
Because like, you know, the womb is a very like low oxygen atmosphere.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
They must get all the oxygen they need through the umbilical cord now.
To survive, but I don't know if it's enough for like complex brain activity that would generate like a normal like human conscious experience.
Possibly. I mean, I would assume it's 20 to 24 weeks because the parts are there, but I mean, it's hard for me to say, obviously. I don't remember being a embryo or fetus.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just say that I think the bodily autonomy arguments get a little bit overlooked in favor of the personhood arguments. And I agree that personhood is like when value begins, but it's not clear that even if there is value and they're a person, that supersedes the woman's bodily autonomy concerns.
Yeah, I mean, you can fight on the personhood thing. You're just starting. You can fight on the bodily autonomy thing. I just think you're starting from really far behind intuitively there, and then you have to build out. You have to do a lot of work, and you can stumble in a lot of places. I feel like the personhood one is more intuitively sensible and it's easy to defend. But yeah, I mean, it is possible. Like, I'm sure the bodily autonomy thing might come up a bit, and I feel comfortable that I can navigate that realm. But it is much harder.
Yeah, and I would also say, have you read Judith Jarvis Thompson's paper, A Defense of Abortion?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so just the people seed stuff.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. Which is why I don't like the term, one guy tried to use that against me, the consent argument. I don't know if I would use consent if I would exchange that with the word or use that equally as the word like aware of a possibility of. I think that's a very dangerous equating of those two things. Because to say that like I park my car in a dangerous neighborhood, I'm aware that it could be broken into, but I certainly don't consent to it. And I think Judith's argument in her paper was like if you put up every screen you could, but a person seed floats in and lands on your couch and a person starts growing, you have an obligation to house and everything. And it's like, well, did you consent to it when you're doing everything you could to block it? I don't know if I would say that that's necessarily the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say yeah, I saw that. It's kind of begging the question what the pro-life position does sometimes, because they're arguing that oh wait, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. That you're consenting to remain pregnant if you get pregnant. So I agree that when you have sex, you're consenting to a risk of becoming pregnant, but that's not the same thing as consenting to remain pregnant.
Sure.
And give birth. So they're kind of smuggling that in. Like if you consent to the risk of becoming pregnant by engaging in sex, that you're somehow implicitly consenting to the further commitment of remaining pregnant.
Yeah, sure. Although she would argue that if you consent to one, you necessarily ought to consent to the other. Have you ever read, there was a response paper that I read that moved me a lot off of the Judith paper. I wish I could remember. I don't even know what school this guy read to. I don't think it was a PhD or anything, but it was it made this argument called, have you ever heard of this concept of like de facto guardianship?
Something like that. Can you explain that?
So basically the argument was, this is the one I kind of rolled with against Matthew Dillahunty. Basically the argument for de facto guardianship is that if an agent is in a place and the agent is like healthy, so the person who could choose otherwise, and somehow through chance, misfortune, whatever, another person winds up in their care, and without having to make a significant sacrifice, on their own, like to die or something, right? Does this person have a moral and then potentially later on a legal responsibility to take care of that person? I feel like morally, I think almost all of us would say yes. I think legally, I think we can get close to it, but I think that that is a hard one to fight against. The hypothetical I think the author gave in that paper is, suppose there's a really bad snowstorm, a person wakes up and they see there's a horrible snowstorm and they're barricaded in their home for 6 months. People know that they're barricaded in there, but they can't go in and they get the person. The person wakes up, and not only are they barricaded in their home for 6 months, they also see they have an annoying fucking baby there. But they're given 6 months of food and supplies and baby formula and everything else, and they can feed the baby if they want, if they choose to. It's going to be annoying. They're going to spend hours doing it, but they could do it, right? Let's say that at the end of the 6 months, the snow thaws, media, police, everybody's knocking on the door. They knock on the door, and the person opens the door, and they're like, oh my God, you're here, you're alive. And the guy says, yes, I'm great. And they go, where's the baby? And they go, oh, I just let it die. I didn't want to feed it. I think almost everybody would say that like a moral crime has been committed there. And then the question is like, do you extrapolate that to legal stuff? What would your argument be against that concept of like de facto guardianship?
Yeah, so I agree with that sort of de facto guardianship. When it comes to resources, we already have that sort of in law. Like you can't be a negligent parent. You have to feed your kids and all that. But let's say we take away the formula or whatever, and let's say that it's a woman who has breast milk. Should she be required legally to allow the child to, get milk from her breast?
So I think if you change it to that, I think people would still even say maybe yes. But if we want to intuition pump it a little on the woman's side, well, what if we say the woman had to provide breast milk, but the child was also her own child? I think we would still say, yeah, that de facto guardianship would apply there, right?
Yeah, and I guess that's the question of what are like the limits of that de facto guardianship, because
the limits start to test basically is like how inconvenient is the pregnancy, how much of a bodily harm is the pregnancy versus the being that's inflicting it, right? Is the question, yeah.
But I think also how consistent is it with our other legal precedents? Because in other contexts, that would be considered, sexual assault close to rape. Outside of like because with kids, we sort of have this intuition that getting breast milk is this normal thing. But if you remove that, let's say it's a grown man who needs the breast milk, then I think our intuitions change a little bit.
Do they? I'm thinking they probably would. Would they?
Yeah.
If there was a woman and a man that were stuck in some place, and let's assume for health reasons, the woman is plenty healthy, and the only way the woman could feed the man was through breast milk, but the woman says no. Does the man have a right to the woman's breast milk? We really do it really sucks. Women kind of got fucked on this. We really do have a special delineation in society between stuff that comes from our body or that permits people to take things from our body or enter our body. That is like a pretty special category of things that we generally would just don't ever allow. But children get kind of a pass on this. And then women are the sole things that are capable of providing this. So one, as a man, I have obviously nothing morally or legally at stake. And then two, for a frame of reference, I don't even have like a true like personal experience buy-in. That's a rough one. Sorry, I got it.
I think there's like a little bit of a conflation between like our moral intuitions about what the woman should do and then our moral intuitions about legally what we should force the woman to do.
For sure.
I feel like sometimes those things are a little bit too entangled because like, of course I have the intuition that the woman, of course, should give her breast milk to save anybody's life. But then legally, I feel like that's a totally different question of should we be like forcing her to do that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. The only thing is, in society, the reason why it feels really bad to do this is because there are other ways to feed the baby. Either somebody else could feed the baby or the baby could be fed with formula. In a society where there wasn't enough food for the baby or the woman had to breastfeed, I don't know if our legal intuitions would change or not. I'm not sure. There's just really nothing comparable to children, so it's hard to say. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know how that would work before we created formula and other like things for babies to have. But I just think those are some things to think about on the bodily autonomy side of things.
Yeah. I think that I feel comfortable enough pushing. I feel like I could argue this side well enough. I think I could also do like a few callers ago, the Pascalian wager, to where on the personhood argument, I feel like I can argue it well enough that at the very least, the other side must contend that there is a legitimate difference of opinion here. And so to march from the personhood argument to these obligations that a woman would have to provide her body, if there are legitimate disagreements as to the personhood of like a single cell zygote, and you're going to compel from somebody what truly is like the highest arguably the highest form of compulsion. Like, I think you could make the argument that it's dramatic, that like, but it's even a higher form of compulsion than conscription, because in conscription, you're not guaranteed to ever get shot or die. If you're delivering a child, you're guaranteed to have 9 months of, body morphing and all that, whatever other bullshit. That truly is that's a very tall order to force somebody to, if there's legitimate disagreement as to the personhood even of the fetus initially, yeah.
Yeah, and if you wanted to put it in like a legal context, I think there's a pretty strong argument that at minimum it would constitute substantial bodily injury in like a legal context.
Yeah, it's just hard to do. When a thing is designed for the thing, it's hard to, the substantial bodily injury is it's such a normatively loaded thing. Like for two gay dudes or whatever, even for a man or a woman, like would we say like anal sex is like a substantial injury? Like it's a lot more injurious, I don't know if it's a real word, than like vaginal sex or whatever else, or jerking off or whatever. But like, we wouldn't necessarily, well, I guess asses aren't even made for sex.
Well, it wouldn't be substantial because there's like certain criteria, like there's like tiers of injury. And like once we get to like substantial and serious, we're talking about like more serious things.
Yeah, but because like a womb, not to lean on the naturalistic thing, but like, I mean, it is like you have babies in there and then they come out of there. Like what would we consider that a substantial serious injury? Like what criteria are we using here that makes it count as a substantial serious injury?
Yeah, there's like specific criteria. Let me.
Sure. Well, no, I'm not worried. I'm not interested in like the American Medical Association. I'm just like in your mind, like what is?
Yeah, just the sorts of things that would significantly impact your life from like an injurious perspective. Like,
okay, so like mobility restrictions, dietary restrictions, arguably, behavior restrictions. Like there's different things that you can or cannot do now. Like increased health complications in the future, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like before we agreed that it was the sort of injuries that you could do lethal self-defense for. So I think we have the intuition that they're pretty severe, at least in some respects.
Sure. I do agree. I generally don't fall on the bodily autonomy side, but like not falling on that, like it would be as close as you could get to justifying lethal self-defense against even an innocent aggressor. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I thought about maybe it would cross the line. But yeah, I mean, I do agree. Yeah, it seems hard to imagine that in any other circumstance. It's hard to imagine almost any 9-month wound that wouldn't qualify as a serious injury for a man or a woman. But
yeah, exactly. And I think pairing the bodily autonomy with the personhood arguments would be even stronger, because you could argue something like these are all of the bodily autonomy infringements, and it's for something that either isn't a person or only has some sort of minimal consciousness.
Sure.
So it kind of over-determines those arguments.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's pretty much all I had.
Okay. I love you. Be careful.
But yeah, hope you do well. Yeah, see you.
Biedermeier, what do you want?
It's just like, I'm not gonna waste your time, just a quick meme, because it might, this lady might bring it up, but it's more the people that go for the Bible and stuff. You know how there's the mention of the potion and stuff for like the miscarriage and stuff. There was the plant that's in history supposedly known as Silphium, that was supposedly aphrodisiac and basically contraception, but it basically got deleted because it was really good apparently.
Okay.
So like it's more of a meme because like it's probably for more like religious people, because like how would God create contraception plant but then it got of course like destroyed because it was useful. But yeah, it's just a meme in case you want to look at it.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Okay,
See ya.
have fun. Kafka Coffee, did I talk to you or did your mic fuck up? Because you're fucking retarded. Oh.
Hello? Holy shit. Okay, you have to give me like more than just 5 seconds. Okay, you can't hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Can you give me your Steelman for the continuity argument?
I don't usually use the continuity argument.
Okay, well,
Any version of the continuity
just,
argument
like,
though would be that like I could have like I can make a reasonable statement about a preference of a thing that existed. So like I can speak. There's a person that I can speak to, even if they're temporarily abated or whatever, right? Like if John is asleep, I can still speak of John's preferences. He's a real thing. He existed. He exerted preferences at one point. Yeah, I would assume they're unchanging.
Okay, yeah, because I think I might be like the only pro-life guy in this entire discourse. So I'm going to try to make my case using a version of the continuity argument. And basically, I think where it kind of maybe breaks down is that both pro-life and pro-choice people feel, well, it feels like they only kind of focus in on like any like moment in time during a pregnancy. So for example, like people will say that, you know, is a fetus a person or not a person X many weeks into a pregnancy, but I kind of like view it more like a series of unbroken events. Is the correct word? No.
Okay.
No, kind of like you have like a series of dominoes.
Okay.
And you push one domino, and then hello.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you push one domino, and then the whole sequence of dominoes continues until the last one falls, which will be the birth, unless either someone kicks over the dominoes, or something catastrophic happens, i.e., you know, a miscarriage caused by an outside factor. In this case, it could be like a gust of wind from a open window.
Sure. Why can't I? But if you want to run with an argument like that, why can't I say that argument starts at the moment of sex? Like, why does that have to start at the moment of conception?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, like the three-body problem, right? You know, like there's 2 planets and or 3 suns and 1 planet. The idea there is that like you can predict it, but the further away you are from the moment of measurement, the more difficult it is to predict it. Basically, I'm saying that, you know, the further you get into the future, the more entropy there is in a decision. So right now, I can guess pretty easily. If I'm hungry, I go downstairs, open the fridge, and I'll make myself a sandwich. But it's much more difficult to make to predict what I'll eat in 3 months' time. And, you know, essentially, like, when you... when I
understand what you're saying, but I feel like this is going to be super arbitrary. Like if you can say that terminating is like, it's like 40% of I think zygotes end up spontaneously aborting or miscarrying. There's like a huge but you want to bucket it off there, but I would say like why can't I could say contraception is murder, and I could say that's close enough in time. Or go ahead.
No, I'm saying that like if the zygote aborts on its own, that's like the outside factor argument. So, you know, there's you're not intervening there. It's kind of like if someone dies of, you know, a heart attack because they're 90 years old versus if you stab them. You can't say, well, they were old, they're probably going to die, so why am I being charged with murder?
Okay, or sure. Hold on, wait.
No,
what I'm trying to figure out is why is the moment of conception the first domino for you? Why not the moment of having sex?
It's fine, yeah. Yeah, well, because when you're having sex, and even when you ejaculate, and there's like 10 trillion sperms in the womb, like the womb, it's the fucking trenches for sperm. Like every single thing there is trying to eliminate as many of them as possible. So there, it's I don't want to say like it's nature taking its course. Maybe that's a bit too reductive, but it's like when it's basically like massive entropy until the sperm enters the egg, because at that point it's like you're not thinking like a woman gets pregnant and she does the pregnancy test and thinks like, oh man, I wonder what the probability of me being pregnant tomorrow is. It's like pretty certain, like, okay, unless something catastrophic happens, I'm probably going to stay pregnant for the next 9 months.
I don't find that very compelling or convincing. If we're saying that the zygote itself will like the dominoes are falling to lead to delivering a child, but we know that like up to 50% of them are spontaneously aborted, and we're just choosing that because that's our first domino. Like you absolutely need, the sex thing has to happen prior to the formation of the zygote. So I don't know why I can't say that sex is the moment that life begins. Just because there's a lot of competition
yeah,
inside the
because-
womb,
well,
or because of whatever, you don't know which particular sperm is going to get there.
Well,
One
not
of them
just
will.
that, yeah. Well, just because like there's the I don't have a kid, so I can't say exactly how many times it takes. But people have sex for many times before they're actually able to conceive. Some people, it's so difficult for some people. They have to go through IVF, and after like the point of conception, like the probability of it being like a successful pregnancy, like skyrockets compared to trying to conceive in the first place.
Yeah, but the probability of there being a successful pregnancy skyrockets once you start having sex. That's the big thing, right? Like if you don't have sex before then, your chances are basically 0%. And then once you start, that's your first skyrocket. And then your second is going to be once the zygote forms. And then your second is going to be once it's hit like past the first trimester. So I feel like I don't feel like you can justify starting it at conception. I don't know why you wouldn't justify this later on in development or prior to conception when the people start having sex. Just saying that, like, well, it's less likely from A to B, but it's likely enough from B to C, even though it's still not necessarily guaranteed from B to C. Like, I just don't know how you can. I don't think there's like strong justification to start it at any one of these points by just saying of like speaking in likelihood.
I mean, yeah. Well, why would you stop why would you set the abortion limit at X many weeks if a fetus could abort theoretically up until like the week before a natural birth?
Wait, what? Say that again?
Yeah, sorry. So when do you think the limit should be to have an abortion? Like how many weeks?
Oh, I'd say probably around 24. I'd say 20 to 24.
Okay, yeah. So do you agree that theoretically it's possible for a pregnancy to have a spontaneous a miscarriage, like even the month up until the
Sure. It's possible for
birth?
babies randomly die with SIDS or whatever, right?
Yeah, sure. Like I have no idea, but like yeah, as soon as possible. So my question is like, why would your limit be only 28 weeks?
Because I think that's when the person emerges.
Yeah, and your argument for like the person emerging is then being able to like have the capacity for thought, right?
Yeah, the neural parts are all aligned and communicating with each other.
Yeah. Can I try a different argument?
Sure.
So yeah, let's say that there's someone with someone having a heart attack, and that they've had a heart attack, their heart stopped, they are medically dead, they might even have like no brain function. And let's say that the paramedics come and I'm restraining them from being able to resuscitate that person. Would you say like that's like I'm doing like something wrong there?
Something wrong, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but like that person is dead, right? And
well, I
and
mean,
the
we wouldn't,
reason
if they can be
would want-
resuscitated, we wouldn't call them dead, right? We would call death is like a state that you can't come back from. But like they could be like on the course of on the path to
medically
dying,
dead,
right?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Well, you can't be medically dead for several minutes before being resuscitated.
Yeah, but we're not talking about some medical. We're saying like philosophically, like we would say a person is dead when the mind can no longer be brought back.
Oh
right?
yeah. I'm not making an argument, for like, is a fetus alive or dead? I'm making more of an argument of like, why is this the stopping point?
Why is
that matters?
Why is what the stopping point?
Because I feel like
wait, why is what the stopping
reason
point?
Why? No, just saying in general, like in abortion, why is anything past the conception this hypothetical stopping point? Your argument is because of the fetus is able to have the capacity for thought. My argument is, my argument is basically like there is an inevitability to reach that point after the fetus is conceived, unless there is a catastrophic event like the 40% of fetuses self-aborting.
Okay. But it doesn't have it yet, right?
No, yeah, but if you say like, I'm not sure if this argument works if you flip it backwards. Like if you say like, if someone has terminal brain cancer that's inoperable, do you do you have like any moral capacity to kill them?
No,
If
because
you know
they're
that-
alive,
that-
right?
Like, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is that exactly saying?
I'm just saying, like, I don't know if I have the correct arguments to probably explain it. I probably don't. So, okay, thanks for the 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, hey, I love you, buddy.
Yeah, cheers, you too.
Be careful. Wrecked him. Obliterated that guy. Back to the shadow zone land. Shadow abyss? I don't know how they say it. Hold on one second. Oh wait, find me apparently Charlie Kirk had a debate on abortion where he got stomped. Find me that one real quick. I'll be back.